BBC News at midday. The government is expected to announce today how much pay will rise this year for workers in the public sector. The BBC understands that pay review bodies have recommended increases of between 6 and 6.5% for employees, including teachers, junior doctors and the police. Government sources have said any rises above 3.5% would have to come out of departments' existing budgets. Rishi Sunak has said any rises must be responsible to avoid making inflation worse. Our political correspondent, Ione Wells, says it's a difficult situation for ministers.
What's tricky for the government right now is previously they leaned on these independent panels for not giving inflation-matching pay rises, saying it was right to follow the advice of independent bodies. As a result, it could cause pretty almighty fight if they now decide not to, because government ministers have been heavily hinting that they may not be able to offer a 6 to 6.5% pay rise for some workers.
Junior doctors in England have begun a 5-day strike over pay. Their union, the British Medical Association, is calling for a 35% pay rise, but ministers say that's unreasonable. They've offered 5%. Thousands of appointments have been postponed as the work of junior doctors is covered by consultants. They're due to go on strike next week for 2 days. NHS waiting lists in England have reached another record level. Nearly 7.5 million people were waiting to start routine hospital treatment at the end of May. Rishi Sunak said earlier this year that cutting waiting lists was one of his priorities. Official figures show the UK economy did not grow in the 3 months to May. GDP fell by 0.1% that month, partially because of the extra bank holiday for the coronation. A parliamentary committee has strongly criticised what it says is the government's failure to develop an effective strategy for dealing with national security threats from China. A report by the Intelligence and Security Committee says China is seeking to penetrate and influence every part of the UK economy, and the government's response has been completely inadequate. The BBC Director General Tim Davie and its acting chairwoman Dame Ellen Closs-Stevens will be questioned in Parliament next week about the corporation's leadership following claims about the conduct of Hugh Edwards. Police said yesterday that allegations the presenter paid a young person for sexually explicit images did not involve criminality. Hugh Edwards' wife said he was being treated in hospital for serious mental health issues. The BBC is resuming its investigation into his conduct. The former Radio 4 controller, Mark Damerzer, said the Director General would have to make a measured approach.
He was in hospital in a fragile state. He has to be extremely careful about keeping that in mind whilst he proceeds with the investigation into, one, the way the BBC handled the complaint when it first came in May, and two, subsequent allegations, and they are only allegations that have been made. It's extremely important that Tim doesn't feel and the BBC doesn't feel that it has to be rushed.
The actor Kevin Spacey has begun giving evidence in his defence against allegations he assaulted 4 young men between 2001 and 2013. He told Southwark Crown Court he accepted he touched one of the complainants, but not in a violent or painful way. The 63-year-old denies all the charges, including sexual assault and indecent assault. The union representing Hollywood actors has recommended strike action after failing to reach a deal with the big studios over pay. It's also seeking assurances that actors won't lose work because of the use of artificial intelligence in film and television. Jeff Torres, who's an actor based in Hollywood, said many of his colleagues were struggling.
There's 99.99% of actors that are not part of the elite that are making million-dollar contracts and making all of this money. So we are like laborers, and those are the people that are fighting. There are auditions where they say, do not audition for our project if you are not willing to work for the base pay. You cannot negotiate for more money.
BBC News.